The mansion stood on a hill overlooking the glittering city, a place so magnificent it looked untouched by the ordinary world. Black marble pillars rose toward the sky, while towering glass walls reflected the golden morning sun. A long driveway lined with perfectly trimmed hedges led to a pair of massive iron gates, guarded by silent men in tailored black suits. Beyond the entrance, fountains danced beneath crystal lights, and expensive sports cars rested like pieces of art. Inside, luxury surrounded every corner. Crystal chandeliers illuminated polished marble floors that stretched through grand hallways decorated with priceless paintings and handcrafted wooden panels. A sweeping staircase curved toward the second floor, while floor-to-ceiling windows revealed breathtaking views of the city below. Every room spoke of unimaginable wealth, yet an eerie silence lingered, reminding everyone that this was not just the home of a billionaire. It belonged to a man whose name alone made powerful people lower their voices. That man was King Min-jae. Dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit with a black silk tie and a luxury watch resting on his wrist, King Min-jae sat calmly in his private office. His expression was unreadable as two loyal bodyguards stood quietly behind him. A polished oak desk separated him from the rest of the room, while a glass of untouched coffee slowly cooled beside stacks of business files. No one dared disturb him without permission. His success had made him one of the most feared Korean mafia bosses in the country. Powerful businessmen sought his approval. Politicians respected his influence. Enemies disappeared before they could become real threats. Yet behind the power and wealth was a marriage already beginning to crack. Elsewhere in the mansion, Amara walked through the elegant hallway wearing a graceful cream-colored dress that flowed gently with every step. She wasn't impressed by the riches anymore. She had once believed this mansion was filled with love. Now it felt colder than winter. She paused outside King Min-jae's office, hoping today would be different. Before she could knock, laughter echoed from inside. A woman's laughter. Amara slowly pushed the door open. Standing beside King Min-jae was a strikingly beautiful woman, dressed in an expensive red designer dress. She leaned comfortably against his desk, as though she belonged there. King Min-jae looked up. His expression didn't soften. "You're early," he said coldly. Amara forced a small smile. "I thought we could have breakfast together." The woman beside him smirked. "So this is your wife?" Amara's eyes shifted toward her. "And you are?" The woman crossed her arms confidently. "The one who actually understands him." Silence filled the room. King Min-jae didn't correct her. Something inside Amara quietly broke. She stared at the man she had loved, waiting for him to deny it. He never did. Instead, he looked away. "I have important work." Amara's voice trembled. "So, that's all I am now? An interruption?" The mysterious woman stepped closer. "You should know when you've already lost." Amara clenched her fists. "I wasn't talking to you." King Min-jae finally stood. His voice remained calm. "Enough." The single word cut through the room like ice. Amara searched his face, desperately hoping to find the man she had married. Instead, she found a stranger. Outside, dark clouds slowly gathered above the mansion, as if the sky itself sensed what was coming. The servants avoided looking toward the office. Everyone knew something terrible was about to happen, but no one dared interfere. Because when King Min-jae made a decision, no one changed it. Will Amara discover that the life she built with King Min-jae is already falling apart? Or is an even greater betrayal waiting just beyond those mansion doors? Subscribe and return for part 2, because the next decision King Min-jae makes will change both of their lives forever. 2. Rain began to fall over the mansion, turning the enormous glass windows into shimmering walls of silver. Thunder rumbled in the distance as darkness slowly covered the city. Inside, the warm golden lights of the mansion reflected against polished black marble floors, making every hallway feel both luxurious and intimidating. King Min-jae had changed into a fitted black suit for an important evening meeting. His hair was perfectly styled, and every movement reflected authority. Behind him, his bodyguards waited silently near the grand entrance. Amara remained upstairs inside their bedroom. The room was breathtaking. A king-sized bed sat beneath an elegant crystal chandelier, while silk curtains gently swayed against floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city skyline. Expensive perfume bottles, designer handbags, and fresh white roses decorated the room. Everything looked perfect, except her heart. She stood beside the window, clutching the wedding ring on her finger. She remembered the promises. She remembered the nights when King Min-jae had held her hand and promised she would never cry because of him. Now another woman laughed inside his office. A quiet knock interrupted her thoughts. Madam. It was one of the elderly housekeepers. Amara opened the door. The woman lowered her head. Master Min Jae has requested your presence downstairs. Amara took a deep breath before changing into a graceful navy blue dress. She looked at herself in the mirror. The woman staring back barely recognized herself. She walked down the magnificent staircase. Every servant immediately stepped aside. King Min Jae stood in the center of the luxurious living room. Beside him, the woman in the red dress smiled confidently. She looked completely at home. Amara's footsteps slowed. King Min Jae finally spoke. "Sit down." She obeyed. No one else dared speak. The silence became unbearable. Finally, King Min Jae placed a thick envelope on the glass table between them. Amara frowned. "What is this?" His answer came without emotion. "Sign it." She slowly opened the envelope. Her breathing stopped. Divorce papers. Her hands began shaking. She looked up. "You're joking." King Min Jae's face never changed. "I don't repeat myself." Amara forced herself to smile through tears. "This isn't funny." The woman beside him leaned back comfortably. "I told you she wouldn't accept reality." Amara ignored her. She looked only at her husband. "After everything we've been through, you're asking me to leave." King Min Jae answered coldly. "Our marriage is over." Her lips trembled. "Why?" No answer. "Tell me what I did wrong." Still, silence. Her voice cracked. "I loved you." The woman in red suddenly laughed. "You loved someone who stopped loving you a long time ago." Amara slammed both hands onto the table. "You stay out of this." The room instantly fell silent. Every bodyguard looked toward King Min Jae. He slowly stood. His eyes were colder than she had ever seen. "Don't raise your voice in my house." "My house?" Tears rolled down Amara's face. "I gave up my family, my career, my dreams, to build this home with you." King Min Jae looked away. His expression remained unreadable. "You'll receive enough money to live comfortably." Amara stared at him in disbelief. "So that's what my life is worth?" She removed her wedding ring. The diamond sparkled beneath the chandelier. Slowly, she placed it on the glass table. "I never wanted your money. I wanted my husband." For the first time, King Min Jae's fingers tightened slightly, but only for a moment. The woman beside him wrapped an arm around his shoulder. "You've made the right decision." Amara looked at both of them. Her heart shattered completely. Without another word, she picked up nothing. Not the jewelry, not the expensive handbags, not the gifts. She simply turned around and walked toward the enormous front doors. Outside, the rain poured harder. The massive gates slowly opened. The servants watched with tears in their eyes as Amara stepped into the storm with only the clothes she was wearing. No umbrella, no luggage, no home. Behind the mansion doors, King Min Jae stood completely still. For one brief second, he almost called her name, but before the words could leave his mouth, his mistress smiled, and he remained silent. Amara disappeared into the darkness, completely unaware that before sunrise, a discovery would change her life forever. Do you think King Min Jae will regret choosing his mistress over Amara? Subscribe now, because what reveals the life-changing secret that neither of them sees coming? The cold rain continued long after Amara disappeared beyond the gates of King Min Jae's mansion. Every step she took felt heavier than the last. Her cream-colored heels were soaked, her hair clung to her face, and her tears mixed with the rain until she couldn't tell them apart. She never looked back. Behind her, the mansion still glowed like a palace, its crystal chandeliers shining through the towering glass windows. To everyone passing by, it looked like the home of a man who had everything, but inside those walls, peace had already left. By sunrise, Amara had reached a small bus station on the edge of the city. Exhausted and shivering, she sat quietly on a wooden bench, clutching the small handbag that held the few things she had left. She hadn't eaten since the previous afternoon. She hadn't slept. Her mind replayed the same painful words. "Our marriage is over," she whispered to herself. So, that's really how it ends. A sharp wave of dizziness suddenly hit her. Her vision blurred. Before she could steady herself, she collapsed onto the cold floor. "Miss." Several strangers rushed toward her. Someone called an ambulance. A few minutes later, inside a nearby hospital, doctors hurried through the emergency room. After several examinations, a middle-aged doctor entered the room carrying a clipboard. Amara slowly opened her eyes. "Where am I?" "You're safe," the doctor replied gently. "You fainted from exhaustion and stress." Amara let out a weak sigh. "I'm sorry." The doctor smiled. "Don't apologize." He looked at the medical report one more time before speaking again. "There is something you need to know." Amara frowned. "What is it?" The doctor paused, then smiled warmly. "Congratulations. You're pregnant." Everything around her became silent. The words echoed again. "You're pregnant." Amara stared at him. "No." The doctor nodded. "You've been carrying the baby for several weeks." Her trembling hand slowly rested on her stomach. A flood of emotions crashed over her. Joy, fear, confusion, heartbreak. She had just lost her husband, yet she had discovered she wasn't alone. Tears streamed down her face. Not tears of despair, but tears for the tiny life growing inside her. She whispered softly, "I promise, I'll protect you, no matter what happens." Meanwhile, back inside the mansion, King Min-jae stood in his private office wearing a dark navy suit, reviewing reports from his business associates. The expensive room remained as elegant as ever. Black marble walls, crystal lighting, rare paintings collected from around the world. Yet something felt different, too quiet. His eyes wandered toward the empty hallway outside his office. For the first time, there was no sign of Amara, no warm greeting, no breakfast waiting, no gentle smile. One of his bodyguards stepped inside. "Boss? What? We've searched everywhere." King Min-jae didn't lift his head. "And Madame Amara is gone." Silence. The bodyguard continued carefully. "She didn't take any money. She didn't take any jewelry. She left everything behind." King Min-jae slowly looked toward the wedding ring still resting on the glass table. His expression remained unreadable. "Continue searching." "Yes, boss." As the bodyguard left, the woman in the red dress walked in confidently. She smiled. "Forget about her. You have me now." King Min-jae said nothing. He simply stared at the ring. For reasons he couldn't explain, the mansion suddenly felt much larger and much emptier. Hundreds of miles away, Amara boarded an overnight bus. She had changed into a simple gray sweater, comfortable jeans, and white sneakers bought with the little cash she still had. She chose a seat by the window. As the bus pulled away, she watched the city disappear behind her. She placed one hand gently over her stomach. "We're starting over, just the two of us." The morning sun slowly rose across the horizon. Neither Amara nor King Min-jae could imagine that this goodbye would last for 2 long years. And when fate finally brought them face to face again, nothing would ever be the same. 2 years can change a person, but they can also hide a secret that changes everything. Subscribe now, and don't miss where Amara begins a brand new life, unaware that destiny is already preparing her next encounter with King Min-jae. The overnight bus rolled through endless highways as the first rays of sunlight painted the sky in shades of gold and orange. The bustling city that had once been Amara's home was now hundreds of miles behind her. She sat quietly beside the window, dressed in a simple beige sweater, dark jeans, and comfortable white sneakers. Her eyes remained fixed on the passing mountains and quiet villages, but her thoughts never left the life she had lost. One hand rested gently on her stomach. She smiled through her tears. "No matter what happens, you'll never feel unwanted," she whispered. Hours later, the bus arrived in a peaceful coastal town far away from Seoul. Unlike the glamorous world King Min-jae ruled, this town was quiet. Small shops lined the streets, children laughed as they rode bicycles, and neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles. It wasn't rich, but it was full of something the mansion had lost long ago: peace. Amara stepped off the bus carrying nothing except a small handbag and the determination to survive. She rented a tiny apartment above an old bakery. The room was barely large enough for a single bed, a wooden table, a small kitchen, and one window overlooking the narrow street below. The wallpaper had faded with time, and the furniture was old. But when she opened the window, a cool breeze carried the scent of fresh bread from the bakery downstairs. For the first time in days, she smiled. "This will be our new home." Months passed. The seasons slowly changed. Amara worked wherever she could. During the mornings, she helped clean a neighborhood cafe. In the afternoons, she assisted an elderly woman at a flower shop. At night, she carefully stitched clothes for a local tailor to earn extra money. Life wasn't easy. Some nights she skipped dinner so she could save enough money for her unborn baby, but she never complained. Whenever she felt exhausted, she gently rubbed her growing stomach. "We're almost there. You and I." Meanwhile, back in Seoul, King Min-jae's empire continued to grow. His mansion became even more magnificent. A new collection of rare artwork decorated the halls, luxury vehicles filled the garage, and business executives from around the world arrived daily for meetings. Yet none of it brought him peace. Late one evening, dressed in an elegant black three-piece suit, he stood alone on the mansion's balcony overlooking the city lights. His loyal assistant approached cautiously. "Boss." King Min Jae didn't turn around. "What is it?" "We still haven't found Madame Amara." King Min Jae remained silent. "We searched every hotel, every airport, every address connected to her. It's as though—" The assistant hesitated. "She vanished." King Min Jae slowly closed his eyes. "Keep looking, even if it takes years." The assistant lowered his head. "Yes, boss." As he walked away, the mistress stepped onto the balcony, wearing a shimmering silver evening gown. She wrapped her arm around King Min Jae's. "You still think about her?" King Min Jae gently removed her hand. "I have work." Her smile disappeared. She had expected Amara to disappear forever. Instead, the memory of Amara refused to leave the mansion. 9 months later, a loud cry echoed through the hospital. Amara held her newborn child against her chest. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. The nurse smiled warmly. "It's a healthy baby boy." Amara stared into the tiny face, his little fingers wrapped around hers. Her heart melted instantly. She whispered, "You'll never grow up wondering if someone loves you." "I'll make sure of that," the nurse asked softly. "Have you chosen his name?" Amara smiled. "June." The tiny baby yawned peacefully in her arms. She kissed his forehead. "Welcome to the world, my little miracle." 2 years passed. June grew into a cheerful little boy, with bright eyes and an innocent smile that made everyone around him laugh. Amara had also changed. She was stronger now, more confident. She wore simple but elegant clothes suited to her hard-working life. Every morning she tied her hair neatly before opening the small hot dog stand she had worked tirelessly to build. The stand wasn't fancy, but it had become one of the town's favorite places because of her kindness and delicious food. Customers lined up daily. Children waved excitedly whenever they saw her. Life was still difficult, but it was honest, and for the first time in years, Amara felt happy. She believed the painful chapter of her life had finally ended. She had no idea that hundreds of miles away, King Min Jae was preparing for a business trip that would bring him to the very town she now called home. Neither of them knew fate had already begun moving the pieces into place. Their paths were about to cross again. Do you think destiny can reunite two people after 2 years apart? Subscribe now, because in Part 5, King Min Jae unknowingly walks into Amara's hot dog stand, and one unexpected glance changes everything. The coastal town was alive with its usual morning rhythm, but something about this day felt different, like the air itself was holding its breath. Steam rose gently from grills, blending with the smell of roasted sausages and fresh bread drifting through the street. People moved casually, laughing, talking, unaware that a moment was about to fracture everything. At the center of it all stood a small hot dog stand, bright, clean, and carefully arranged, yet surrounded by chaos in the most ordinary way. Stainless steel counters reflected the sunlight, ketchup and mustard bottles lined up neatly, and sizzling hot dogs turned slowly on the grill. And behind it, Amara. She wore a neatly fitted red polo shirt and a matching red vendor apron tied at her waist, the fabric slightly stretched from long hours of work. A red baseball cap with a white M rested firmly on her head, keeping her long black hair tucked neatly underneath. A simple gold necklace rested against her collarbone, catching brief flashes of sunlight whenever she moved. But what made her different today wasn't just her appearance, it was what she held in her arms, her child. Amara balanced motherhood and survival at the same time, holding her little boy close against her body while working. The child, curious, quiet, and wide-eyed, rested safely in her left arm, wearing a soft outfit and tiny socks that kicked slightly as he looked around. With her right hand, Amara held metal tongs over the grill, carefully turning hot dogs with practiced precision. "Next order, please," she called out with a calm but warm voice. Customers smiled at her. Some admired her strength without even knowing her story. To them, she was just the hard-working woman who always served food with kindness. But Amara's eyes, there was something deeper in them now. Strength earned through pain. A past buried too deep to speak of, and a life she had rebuilt from nothing. Then, a sudden silence spread through the street. It was subtle at first, A shift in attention. People weren't sure why they turned their heads. They just did. Black luxury SUVs had entered the street. Slow, silent, controlled. The kind of presence that didn't ask for attention. It commanded it. The vehicles stopped not far from the hot dog stand. Doors opened. Men in dark suits stepped out first, scanning the surroundings with sharp precision. Then, he appeared. King Min-jae. Dressed in a perfectly tailored dark suit, his presence alone seemed to drain the sound from the world around him. His expression was calm, unreadable, but his eyes carried something heavier today. Not business, not power, something closer to memory. He walked forward slowly, one step, then another, until his gaze naturally drifted across the street and stopped. Time broke. Amara looked up. Their eyes met. The metal tongs slipped slightly in her hand. Her breath froze. For a moment, everything disappeared. The noise of the street, the customers, the movement, even the sound of her own heartbeat, because the man standing across from her was the man she had buried in her past. King Min-jae didn't move at first. Neither did she. But then his eyes shifted slightly downward, and that's when he saw it. The child in her arms. A small boy resting peacefully against Amara's shoulder. His eyes narrowed just slightly. Something inside him tightened, but he didn't understand why. Amara instinctively pulled her child closer, her grip tightening almost protectively. Her voice came out low, shaky. "Why are you here?" King Min-jae didn't answer immediately. He couldn't, because for the first time in years, he felt something unfamiliar, confusion, and something dangerously close to recognition. The street remained frozen. Even the wind felt still. Then his assistant stepped forward slightly. "Boss, should we proceed with the meeting location?" But King Min-jae didn't respond. His eyes were still locked on Amara, and the child in her arms. A question he could not yet form pressed against his mind. Why does that child feel familiar? Amara took a slow step back behind the counter, her body tense. She knew this moment had arrived too soon. Far too soon. Because if King Min-jae looked long enough, he might realize the truth she had hidden for 2 years. And once he did, nothing would ever remain the same again. A soft wind passed through the street, brushing between them like a warning. Amara tightened her hold on her child. King Min-jae took one slow step forward, and the world held its breath. Subscribe now, because in Part 6, King Min-jae finally steps closer, and one question is about to destroy the silence between them. Is that my child? The morning crowd remained frozen. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The cheerful sounds that had filled the coastal street only moments earlier had vanished beneath an unbearable silence. Amara stood behind her hot dog stand, her little son resting safely against her shoulder. The boy blinked curiously at the strangers dressed in expensive black suits. King Min-jae stared at them. His breathing remained calm, but his mind refused to. The child. Something about the little boy disturbed him in a way he couldn't explain. His assistant cleared his throat. "Boss, the investors are waiting." King Min-jae never looked away from Amara. "Cancel it." The assistant blinked. "Sir, I said cancel it." Every bodyguard immediately nodded. "Yes, boss." Amara tightened her grip around June. "I asked you a question." Her voice was quiet but firm. "Why are you here?" King Min-jae finally answered. "I came here for business." She gave a bitter smile. Business always came first. Those words struck harder than she intended. For the first time in years, King Min-jae found himself unable to answer. A customer stepped toward the stand. "Miss Amara, are you all right?" She forced herself to smile. "I'm fine." The elderly customer looked suspiciously toward the convoy of luxury vehicles. "You know these people?" Amara hesitated. "I used to." The answer echoed through the silent street. Min-jae slowly lowered his eyes toward the child again. The little boy looked back at him without fear. Bright eyes, calm expression. Something about his gaze reminded him of someone. Himself. His assistant leaned closer. "Boss," Min-jae interrupted him. "What is the boy's name?" Amara immediately answered. "That's none of your business." The tension became so thick that even the wind seemed to stop blowing. The child reached toward the hot dog tongs, giggling softly. Amara smiled gently as she adjusted him against her shoulder. That single smile, Min-jae hadn't seen it in over 2 years. He suddenly realized how empty his mansion had become after she disappeared. The realization unsettled him. "I didn't come here to cause trouble," he said quietly. Amara laughed once, a painful laugh. "You already caused enough." The crowd exchanged confused glances. Nobody understood what history existed between them. A young woman whispered, "Is that her husband?" "I don't know. They look like they know each other." The assistant stepped forward. "Everyone, please give Mr. Min-jae some space." Before anyone moved, an elderly fisherman spoke loudly. "This is our town. We don't chase away hard-working people because rich men show up." Several people nodded. Min-jae looked around. For the first time in years, nobody cared who he was. Nobody bowed. Nobody looked frightened. They simply stood beside Amara, protecting her. Something inside him tightened. Amara had built a family here, not through money, through kindness. June suddenly laughed and reached toward a little girl standing nearby. The little girl smiled and waved. Amara smiled warmly. "There you go." The peaceful moment made Min-jae strangely emotional. He remembered countless nights inside the mansion, when he and Amara had talked about having children. He had buried those memories. Now they returned all at once. The assistant spoke carefully. "Boss, perhaps we should leave." Min-jae ignored him. Instead, he asked quietly, "How long have you lived here?" Amara looked directly into his eyes. "Long enough to learn I never needed your mansion." Those words cut deeper than any insult. One of the bodyguards suddenly noticed something. "Boss." "What?" "The boy." He hesitated. What? Looks familiar." Min-jae frowned. The bodyguard immediately lowered his head. "I'm sorry." But the words had already entered Min-jae's mind. He looked again. The shape of the child's eyes, his eyebrows, even the way he tilted his head. It felt impossible. Amara sensed exactly where his thoughts were going. Fear flashed across her face for only a second. She immediately stepped backward. "I think it's time for you to leave." Min-jae took one slow step closer. "I only want to talk." "I don't." "Amara." She froze. He hadn't spoken her name like that in years. Not coldly, not angrily, simply, softly. She swallowed hard. "You lost the right to say my name the day you threw me away." Silence returned. The words landed like thunder. Several townspeople stared at Min-jae. One elderly woman gasped. "You threw her away?" Another customer looked angry. This young woman worked while pregnant. She cleaned cafes. She stitched clothes. She almost collapsed from exhaustion. She raised that little boy alone. Each sentence felt like another weight landing on Min-jae's shoulders. His expression finally changed. Only slightly. Shock. He slowly turned toward the elderly woman. "Pregnant?" The woman nodded. "Yes. We all helped her. She came here with nothing. She cried every night during her pregnancy." Amara immediately interrupted. "That's enough." But the woman continued. She never complained. She only kept saying, "My child deserves a better life." Min-jae felt his heartbeat becoming heavier. His assistant looked toward him with concern. "Boss?" For the first time, King Min-jae wasn't listening. His eyes remained fixed on the child. The timeline. 2 years. Her disappearance. The pregnancy. The child's age. Every piece slowly began connecting. No, it couldn't be. His breathing became uneven. He took another careful step forward. Amara instinctively stepped back. "Don't." Her voice trembled. "Don't come any closer." June sensed the tension and buried his tiny face against Amara's shoulder. Min-jae stopped immediately. He looked at the frightened little boy. His chest tightened. He had frightened a child, something he had never imagined doing. "I won't hurt him," he said quietly. Amara looked straight into his eyes. "I believed those words once. You promised you would never hurt me too. And look what happened." The street fell silent again. Even the bodyguards lowered their heads. Nobody had ever spoken to King Min-jae like this. Yet nobody interrupted, because every word was true. Min-jae slowly closed his eyes. For the first time in years, he wasn't thinking like a mafia boss. Tires screeched. The door flew open. A familiar woman stepped out, wearing oversized sunglasses and an expensive designer outfit. She removed the glasses. Her eyes immediately locked onto Amara. Then, onto the child. A slow smile spread across her face. "Well, so this is where you've been hiding." Amara's face turned pale. King Min-jae slowly turned toward the woman. His expression became dangerously cold, because standing before them was the mistress he had once chosen over his wife. and the storm that had been building for 2 years had finally arrived. The silence shattered. The woman in the designer dress smiled arrogantly as she walked toward the hot dog stand. "So, this is the miserable life you chose?" She glanced around the small coastal street before laughing. A hot dog stand? After living in a mansion? The townspeople frowned. Amara held June closer but remained calm. "I didn't choose misery," she replied. "I chose peace." The mistress laughed louder. "Peace? You call this peace?" King Min-jae slowly turned toward her. His voice was colder than the sea breeze. "What are you doing here?" She smiled sweetly. "I heard your meeting was here. I thought I'd surprise you." Then she looked at Amara again. "Looks like I found something even more entertaining." June peeked over Amara's shoulder. The mistress frowned. "So, you even have a child now?" She leaned closer. "I wonder who the father is," before Amara could answer. "Enough." King Min-jae's voice echoed through the street. Everyone fell silent. He stared at the little boy again. His heart pounded. Then he asked the question that had haunted him since the moment he saw the child. "How old is he?" Amara looked away. She didn't answer. "Answer me," she slowly whispered. 2 years. The words hit him like lightning. His breathing became uneven. He counted the months in his mind. The night she left, the divorce, the pregnancy. Everything aligned perfectly. He looked directly into her eyes. "Is he?" His voice broke for the first time. "My son?" The world seemed to stop. Amara closed her eyes. Tears rolled silently down her cheeks. Yes, one word, just one. Yet it destroyed the walls King Min-jae had spent years building around himself. He staggered backward. His assistant quickly reached toward him. "Boss." He raised a hand. "No." His eyes never left the child. "My son." June looked at him curiously without understanding. King Min-jae slowly knelt on the pavement. The feared Mafia boss, the man politicians feared, the billionaire who never bowed to anyone, was now kneeling before the woman he had abandoned. Tears filled his eyes. "I didn't know." Amara's voice cracked. "You never asked." He lowered his head. "I failed you. I failed both of you." The mistress stepped forward angrily. "Min-jae, don't embarrass yourself over her." He slowly stood. His expression changed completely. For the first time in years, the coldness disappeared. Only disappointment remained. He looked at the woman beside him. "You knew." She froze. What? "You knew Amara left while carrying my child." She forced a smile. I didn't know anything." His assistant suddenly stepped forward. "Boss, I investigated after your meeting was canceled." He handed Min-jae a tablet. "There are old hospital records. A witness saw Madame Amara collapse the morning after she left the mansion. The pregnancy was confirmed that same day." King Min-jae closed his eyes. Every report confirmed the truth. The mistress panicked. "Those records prove nothing," the assistant continued. "We also found security footage from the mansion. The screen played. It showed Amara leaving alone in the rain. No luggage, no money, no jewelry. Only tears." Another clip appeared. The mistress smiling inside the mansion moments later. Then, another recording. One of the servants secretly recorded an argument. The mistress's voice echoed clearly. "I'm glad she's gone. Now nothing will stand between us." King Min-jae slowly turned toward her. His eyes had become terrifyingly calm. "You manipulated everything." She stepped backward. I only loved you. You mocked my wife. You celebrated while she suffered. You watched her leave, carrying my child, and said nothing." She tried grabbing his arm. "Please." He pulled away. "Don't touch me." His bodyguards immediately stepped forward. "Boss?" King Min-jae never looked away from her. "Take her back to the mansion." Hope appeared on her face. She smiled. "I knew you'd forgive me." His next words destroyed that hope. "Pack every belonging she has. Remove her fingerprints from every room. Cancel every bank account I opened for her. Terminate every contract connected to my name. And once she's outside those gates, she is never to return." Her face turned white. "No, you can't. I belong beside you." King Min-jae answered quietly. "The woman who belonged beside me." He turned toward Amara. "Was standing in front of me all along." The mistress screamed. She struggled against the bodyguards. "You'll regret this. I made you successful. You need me." The bodyguards escorted her toward the SUV, despite her desperate cries. The townspeople watched silently until the vehicles disappeared. Only then did King Min-jae slowly walk toward Amara. He stopped several feet away. not wanting to frighten her. His eyes rested on June. "My son." His voice trembled. "I'm sorry I wasn't there. I missed your first smile, your first word, your first step. I can never get those moments back." Amara looked at him. "You can't." He nodded. "I know." He slowly removed his expensive watch, then his wedding ring, which he had secretly kept all these years. He placed them on the hot dog counter. "I built an empire, but without you, it became an empty palace." He lowered his head. "I don't deserve forgiveness. I don't deserve another chance. But if you ever allow it, I'll spend the rest of my life proving I've changed." Days passed. King Min-jae kept his promise. He rented a small house near Amara's apartment, instead of forcing her to return with him. Every morning he visited the hot dog stand, not as a mafia boss, as a father. He brought toys for June, storybooks, warm clothes, fresh flowers for Amara. Sometimes she accepted them. Sometimes she didn't. He never complained. When customers became too many, he quietly helped clean tables. When rain started, he held umbrellas over customers. When June laughed and reached toward him one afternoon, King Min-jae froze. The little boy wrapped tiny arms around his neck. "Daddy." One simple word. Min-jae broke into tears. Amara watched silently. For the first time, she didn't see the cold man who had broken her heart. She saw a father trying to become worthy of his son. Weeks turned into months. One evening, after closing the hot dog stand, King Min-jae handed Amara a small paper bag. Inside was the old wedding ring she had left on the mansion table. He smiled sadly. "I'm not asking you to wear it. I'm asking you to decide our future." Amara looked at him for a long moment. Then she gently slipped her hand into his. "I can't erase the past. But I believe people can change." King Min-jae's eyes filled with tears. "I'll never make you cry again." She smiled softly. "Then don't." Months later, the three of them returned to the mansion together. But this time, the mansion no longer felt cold. The laughter of little June echoed through every hallway. The servants smiled again. Fresh flowers filled every room. And King Min-jae never allowed work to come before his family again, because he had learned the most painful lesson of his life. A kingdom built on power can collapse overnight, but a family rebuilt with love is stronger than any empire. Before you go, let me ask you something. Did you enjoy this story? If you did, don't just scroll away. Take 1 second to hit the like button, leave me a comment, and subscribe, because I have so many more emotional love stories, family dramas, and shocking plot twists waiting for you.